we have to stop comparing ourselves, and just self-love is a selfish thing. It's something about you and you're alone. Stop worrying so much about what's going on around you, what other people are doing, and just focus on yourself and be the best you can be with what you have.
Hey everyone, welcome to the RLT podcast, where we share some real life tools, tips, and tricks to help you not only discover but also reach your ultimate goals. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new week and a brand new episode of the Real Life Tips podcast. This is episode number 58. I'm your host, Mono.
Joined by Leon as usual. Can you hear the excitement in my voice?
Yeah.
It's Easter weekend, man. So when this is airing, we are planning. I hope this is going to be awkward if it doesn't land on Easter weekend. Man, you better make sure.
We're trying to.
So if you are listening to this right now, it's probably just been Easter, or you are actually tuning in on the Easter weekend on Monday as this goes live. So thank you for tuning in and being, diligent and getting your mind food in and listening to us. I mean, do you celebrate? Do you have anything planned for this weekend, or for the guys that are celebrating? So, Manu, what are you getting up to this weekend? Are you taking that big old truck of yours somewhere, or what are you doing?
I wanted to ask you the exact same question, but I already know the answer to it. You're probably going away somewhere, Lian, because that's sort of like your every second week thing. But for me, no, I don't actually have anything planned. I'm hoping there's enough time for me to quickly put something together.
Dude, I actually envy that. Just keep it to nothing, eh? The moment I made arrangements for the weekend, it was instant regret. I would actually prefer to just hang around the house and do nothing for like 4 days straight.
Yeah.
So I actually envy you.
I think it's one of those odd instances where not having a plan is probably the best plan.
Totally.
At some point, because it's almost like New Year's plans as well, right? We all want to experience the best New Year's Eve and all that kind of stuff, and then you overplan it, or you set your expectations too high. Yeah, exactly.
Like
you don't even make it to midnight. That's happened to me. Exactly.
Yeah,
Leon, it's super good to be back behind the mic again, and I think for those of our listeners who will be tuning in when this airs on Monday, when it's a public holiday for most of the world, congratulations on looking after yourself. Congratulations on actually, feeding the brain muscle, like you said earlier on. And I love that. And for that, you will be rewarded. For the rest of you, you probably will be rewarded too. You'll just have to wait a little bit longer until you get back into the swing of things and listening to your podcast again. Yeah. But with that being said, Lian, what is the topic that we will be covering today?
Dude, as usual, this is not even planned. No, actually, it was completely planned. But we're talking about self-love and loving yourself. So, and actually, as we just said, so you actually tuning in and listening to this is a form of self-love. It's a way to take our time in your day for yourself, spend it selfishly towards yourself for, hopefully to try and earn points in either the mental department, spiritual department, physical department. Not that we were going to make you fit, but I'm just saying whatever you do, you should try and always have a bit of selfishness. And I mean that in a good way, in the sense of whatever you put into yourself should be a reward in one of those almost like tick boxes, whether it's your mental health, whether it's your physical health, your spiritual health, your financial health. There's a few factors that we are going to discuss here today that leads to self-love and that talks about self-care. And I think it's very appropriate in this day and age that we are in right now. I think all of us have taken quite a bit of a beating over the last couple of years. I don't think anyone has been able to escape the just bare knuckle fist fight that we've had to have day in, day out over the course of the last couple years. And it just seems like it doesn't stop, eh? If you look at all the stuff going on in the world, this is not a politics show, so I'm not even going to try and get into that. But I think we all know that the world is literally fraying at the edges a little bit. And it's really time to maybe take stock. As much as you want to care for other people and you want to care for your kids and you want to care for your community and whatever, it's very difficult to do that if you don't care for yourself first. Yeah. And it's very difficult to give when you've got nothing to give, you know. So today's episode is all about that. What do we mean by self-love? What do we mean by taking care of yourself first? And what is the benefit? Why would you do that? Why would you be selfish? So super excited about this episode because I think we all lack in this department.
It's such a good topic because I think that we have covered in a past episode, the topic of self-confidence and self-acceptance. And that is a very big part that we need to focus on from time to time. I think from time to time, the world gets us down and everything, and we have to sort of pick ourselves back up. What we are discussing here today is an ongoing battle. Like you said, it's something that, we constantly have to remind ourselves of. We constantly have to look after ourselves in order to help those around us and to look after those around us. So extremely important, but also to break it down into those different pillars, right? To look at the physical well-being, to look at our mental well-being, to look at our financial well-being and spiritual well-being. And we're going to address each and every one of those departments here today. And I think that's what really excites me about this episode, Leon, is, how can we look at our physical selves and say, how can I be kinder to myself? How can I become my own best friend and sort of work that into my daily routines so as to have this as an ongoing improvement on ourselves, right? But also then moving into the mental space as well, looking at our own mental health on an ongoing basis, being kind to ourselves, the things that we say to ourselves, the things that we let in, but also looking at financial and spiritual in those aspects as well. So super stoked to deep dive straight into it, Leon. Where do we start with this? I think let's start with physical. Physical is something that we brought up quite a bit.
Let's start with the one that I suck at, Marnie. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, we brought this up quite a bit, right? So, but it's really all about just being kind to yourself. So, Leon, how do you look in the mirror? Because I find you as, and this is going to sound like an attack or very personal, but at least we're friends. So we have been friends for quite some time. So I can be straight with you, right?
Yeah.
How do you look in the mirror? Because I see you as a very confident person. How do you look in the mirror and just find that, I need to be kind to myself? How do you apply that? Because if I look at myself and I pick up a little bit of a beer boop, you know what I'm talking about. Whoever's listening to this and you've gone through your phase of drinking a lot and eating extremely unhealthy.
No idea what you're talking about.
you know what I'm talking about. I look at myself and I instantly go, ugh. No, I hate myself. I can't do this anymore, How did you find that? Because you weren't always as big boned as you are now. So that obviously has changed at some point.
For the South Park reference, I love that. I'm not fan of big boned. So no, it honestly, that is probably the one area of all the self-loves where I struggle a bit because I'm not happy with where I am physically. But I do still tell myself good things, I will still every now and again look at the mirror. That's if I don't avoid them altogether. But I will try and dress up nicely, the things that I kind of can control. I will still wake up every morning, do my hair, get a nice, work shirt, some dressed shoes sometimes if we go out. Make an effort, and still kind of make an effort with what you've got. And I'll still tell myself, this man, this body made some really beautiful children, and I've got a really beautiful wife, and I still have things.
I actually saw you post a photo the other day of when your daughter, I think, was very little and you still didn't have the beard. And beautiful, beautiful children, dude. Seriously.
I honestly, I don't know how I did that. I still ask my wife if they're mine every day. But I mean, lots of people luckily tell me that their eyebrows and stuff look a lot like mine. So I guess the writing's on the wall there. But it comes down to being able to break down what the obvious problems are and still kind of reward yourself for the small things, So, for example, I did this little challenge about a month ago, and I'm still going strong on it, of drinking more water and eating lots of salad. All right, doing lots of greenery in my diet. It's got to do with some health issues and stuff that I'm facing as well, but it's definitely helping with, obviously, with losing weight. And that's a small thing. If I compare that to a gym bunny guy, and again, please don't come and beat me up. Big blokes out there with grit, big muscles. Yeah. I'm talking about those guys that, they look at this effort, they'll say, that's pathetic. Like, that's not going to get you any results. But in my world and in my perspective, that's enough. That's enough to kind of fill that bucket of self-love on the physical side, even though it's half empty. But I mean, it can either be half empty or half full, and I prefer to look at it as at least half full and not half empty, So how do you do it? I mean, from a physical perspective, you're way more outrageous than I am as far as physical upkeep, but yet you seem to kind of give yourself more of a beating around your physical appearance than I do, that's far better, well maintained physically as I am. How does that work?
But that's exactly why I brought it up, right? Especially starting with physical, because I mean, we are two different sides of the coin. It's like we've got the very same personality or very similar personality, but in terms of physical attributes and age and all of those types of lifestyles, everything, it's a lot different. But for me, I do find it challenging. It's a constant battle. It's always been, I don't know, and it definitely contributes to a lot of other factors in one's life as well. If you don't find that self-acceptance at some point, or if you don't execute self-love from time to time, just as an ongoing, you called it maintenance, So no, I do find it difficult. I think another big thing that comes to mind as well is that, and I know a lot of people are struggling with this, I'm sure every single person is struggling with this as well, is something physical besides just picking up weight or besides just your body build and all that. Something physical could be, I don't know, a defect somewhere, or I don't know, a scar somewhere, or maybe it's
That's true.
Maybe it's just a facial feature that you've never really come to accept, right? And so every single time that you look in the mirror, you look at that thing and you're always like, I wish that something could be different and all that, right? So I think that plays a key part to it as well. And the reason I bring that up is because you mentioned something earlier on, is making the best with what you've got, or doing the best with what you've got, right? And that, I think, is a big part of that as well, that self-love and being kind to yourself, is saying that this is what I have, this is what I've been given. But it doesn't mean that I have to beat myself up over it. It means that I just need to, like you said, put in the effort and just make the best with what you have, right? So for the guys out there, you'll understand this, but you grow a beard. That's not the reason I grew a beard. I grew a beard because you said I couldn't. But like a lot of guys grow beards because they want to hide the chin, or they feel like they don't have a big or strong jawline or anything.
I'm not
like
hiding my chin, I'm hiding my second chin. That's
exactly. I was sort of hinting towards that. I didn't know if you wanted to expose yourself in that way, but it's fine. Let's cut to the bone, right? But that's the thing, Leon, and that's why I wanted to start with physical, because that sort of spills over into mental as well, mental well-being, mental health. Because if you physically don't execute self-love, by looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, you know what, this is what I have, but today I'm going to put in effort. Tomorrow I'm going to put in effort. I'm going to make the best with what I have. I'm going to give attention to myself. If you do not do that, I feel that spills over into your mental well-being again, because then you start hating yourself. You like utter hatred. And I felt that before, where just because of the physical attributes, because I'm not achieving my body goals, because I'm just not happy with the way that I look, because I look at everyone else around me.
Yeah, it can be so draining.
That guy has he's got such a cool hairstyle. He's got toned muscles, or like he's just got a great posture, and all of those little things, right, start piling up, and you start looking down on yourself. And mentally, I think that takes a massive toll on one as well.
Very, very interesting point that you're touching on now. I was kind of going to lean in towards that as well. So I kind of see the different areas of self-love, right? So we're talking about mental, physical, spiritual, and financial. They kind of lean on and are mutually exclusive of one another, right? So if you think of those four things as maybe like buoyancy mechanisms on a raft, right? The more air you blow into one, the raft will kind of stabilize itself again. The more you let out from one, it will sack down in that area. But they also kind of keep each other afloat, So for me, for example, that might not have a strong physical self-love aspect, I know that I've got a very strong mental aspect, and that kind of equalizes it out, and it carries the physical part a little bit. I know that my spiritual life is quite strong. And, financially I'm doing okay. So that it's kind of important to start realizing as we go through this topic that we have to kind of keep all of these things sort of satisfied, because they do keep each other afloat as well. So that if one is maybe, struggling a little bit or lacking behind, maybe you got a knock at your church and your spiritual level has gone down a bit, or you've lost a member in the family and you don't understand why that happened and why, and your spiritual side goes down. Those times it's maybe good to go to the gym and exercise to get your mind clear, and that physical exercise will start elevating that spiritual level back up again. So to come back to the mental state, I think mental obviously anything that's got to do with your brain, that's literally the engine, the steering, the transmission, and everything of your vessel, your body.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
whatever you can control, and I mean, I think we've literally given you all the instruments in our podcast on what we mean by controlling your mental state, being mindful, being aware. If you can do strong in that department, you'll not only be mentally strong, but you'll also be able to kind of convince your mind to get up in the morning and do the physical stuff that will then once again aid on the other things, or convince yourself that, this might have happened, that's bad, but my spirit still needs to be strong. My religion or my whatever I need to lean on spiritually still needs to be there. I understand that because my mental self-love is taken care of, and I need to do exercises to enhance my mental capacity. I need to read books if that's a thing that you enjoy, or listen to books, listen to podcasts like you guys are doing now. Spend time in the morning with yourself alone and exercise that mental muscle. That's probably the cornerstone of all the different self-loves. If you can get that one right, you can quite easily kind of compensate for maybe some flaws in the other self-love areas. What do you think?
No, I totally agree with you. A lot of these things depend on other things as well. So getting up and getting something done is tangible. It's something tangible that you give to yourself, right? It's something that you say, you know what, no matter what happens in my life, there's so many things that I don't have control over. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the word control, because it feels a lot of the time, when we're talking about self-love and we're talking about self-acceptance and we're talking about being kind to yourself, it almost feels like there are things beyond your control and that you have absolutely no control over. But what we're saying here is that you can get control of that, even though, sure, you had no choice or no saying as to how you look or what you look like and how you were born, right? Even though you don't have a lot of control over your mental state, that maybe there's stuff that you've been carrying along with you for years or decades in some cases as well. You can start to put in that extra little bit of effort and just make the best of whatever you have been. And it's quite cool because we've just covered a lot about taking the cards that you've been dealt and just making the best of that situation.
That's
in our previous episodes, right? So, and that's what we're saying here as well, is that you can, with self-love, with being kind to yourself, you can take whatever you've been given and just make the best out of that situation, right? And I think it absolutely applies. Like you said, you take away from the one and you're going to start taking away from the others as well. So it's important to realize that there are these different factors in life, or these different pillars in life that one needs to constantly feed, and that you're the centerpiece there. Is that, it doesn't start with someone else telling you that you look good. It starts with what you tell yourself in the mirror every single day. And by just getting the physical exercise, you're boosting the mental as well. I think the very same thing goes for financial as well. We get carried away by life, right? Sometimes that, things pop up and we instantly have to pull out money for this and money for that and money for that. I'm sure you can relate to this because you've got kids. So this is an ongoing struggle for you as well, right? You've got a wife. You've got a wife who spends all the... It is though. So there's so many things that constantly demand our finances to be in order and for us to put money down on the table to solve these problems. But how often do we actually look at ourselves and say, you know what, I'm going to put aside your $500 a month or $50 a month or $20 a month to look after myself, right? So to go and treat myself, to go and buy something that will mentally stimulate me, or let's go on a holiday, just me and my wife, right? Or just me alone, right? Let's just take some time to look after ourselves as well. Financially, I feel that that's a very big part of my life as well. I look after myself in the sense of making sure that I always have some sort of buffer in place, so that if life demands a little bit too much, then at least that's not going to affect my mental well-being. It's not going to affect my physical well-being, right? And that's how I execute self-love and being kind to myself, is to make sure that I have something set up just for myself to sort of sustain that, because you've been under financial pressure. I've been under financial pressure. I'm sure a lot of you out in the audience have been under financial pressure, and that instantly starts putting a lot of pressure on you mentally. And again, in reverse, starts putting an effect on you physically, because then you're not eating, you're not, because you're constantly stressed out as well. Don't you find that in a financial aspect that plays a big role?
Finances is unfortunately, I think it has become the drug that kind of clouds almost and drowns out everything in life. And every aspect. We just spoke about it earlier this morning around anxiety. And when finances don't go right, you get anxious. When I'm anxious, I'm very, very near-visioned and short-sighted. Like, I can't live a balanced, normal life when I'm living through anxiety, when I'm going through some sort of anxious situation. So it makes it exceptionally hard to have a strong mental health attitude, etc., to keep getting your exercise in and doing your routines and all those kind of things, and adding value to those other buckets of self-love if you're constantly in a pinch and you're struggling financially. So finances, there's two aspects for me as far as self-love is concerned. The one thing is try and make the best effort from the cards that's been dealt to you, and try and earn the maximum amount of cash and money that you can, right? That's as simple as it is. Whatever you can and you know that you're worth earning, don't stop at anything to earn that amount that you think you are worth. And if you don't get enough, you strive and you work and you use your mental capacity, you use your skill set, you use your grunt and grit, and you get the amount of money that you feel you are worth for whatever it is that you are giving. And be realistic, understand the industry, the market, the economy, etc. But go and get the money that you need in order to give yourself the life that you want, and your people, your family, your children, your wife, etc., to do that. Secondly, it comes into what you were talking about. We need to then also set aside that money for stability, but also for self-care. Go on the holidays, get away from the house. You'll find that getting out of your area and just into wilderness, into nature or something like that, fills up almost all the self-love buckets, because it's a financial thing that you're doing. It's spiritual most of the time to get out in nature and put your bare feet on grass. It's like super helpful and healthy to do that. It's been proven. It's going to fulfill your mental health in certain ways. It's a physical thing because you're not sitting behind a desk like I normally do. So finances is unfortunately, as much as I hate the concept of finances, it is an extremely important cornerstone. And I mean, we just touched on spiritual, and I think that brings us into the fourth and final self-love pillar is spiritual. And I think this is something that's very personal. It's not something that I can really give advice about because it is something that's super intimate and personal to each and every person out there. But I think most people understand and have a longing for something bigger than themselves, right? Whether that's religion or it's a passion of some sort, or it's music, or it's becoming a monk, or whatever it might be, something spiritual, something way bigger than you, a concept that you believe in, that you honor, that you offer prayer towards, etc. That is something that if that falls apart, if everything else falls apart and your spirit is there, that gives you the faith. That's what you're left with is faith. And that's the only thing that can kind of re-jolt everything else back up to speed. Once everything comes tumbling down, your spiritual side is usually the last part that will crumble, and that should build your brick wall back up.
And that brings everything together, right? Because we did an episode not so long ago, if I recall, I think, it was definitely in season 1, where we spoke about learned helplessness and how not having hope or not having faith could really, really have a massive impact on how you respond, how you react to situations in your life on an ongoing basis. And so I think spirituality plays a key part. And like you said, it's not for us here to say, this is what you should do in your spiritual world. It's a very, very personal topic and a very personal discussion that you have to have with yourself and maybe with those closest to you as well. But the one thing that we need to point out is that this plays a key role. This is something that is important to most people out there, if not all people out there, is to have some sort of hope, some sort of faith, something to hold on to during the tough times and all that. And
something
as you said,
a bit beyond reasoning.
Everything sort of leans on one another as well. So taking that into consideration, spending the time and actually focusing on your spiritual spirituality is a key part as well, Leon. I think it's such a good topic, and I think it's super important. I think we can talk about this all day, but I also know for a fact that it's time for us to head into the real life
Tips. I practiced.
for today. Well done, man. Well done. Cool. Leon, so now that we've learned we're our only best friends, right? We've learned that looking after ourselves in a lot of different ways, you know, the physical, the mental, the financial, the spiritual, that these things lean on one another, right?
Correct.
We've also discussed the fact that it starts with physical. For a lot of us, right? It might start with physical. If you are extremely strong-willed, you can start with mental, right? Telling yourself that you look good. I've tried that. It sucks. It doesn't work for me. For me, I want something tangible, right? So, and I think that's why we started with physical, right? Is because it gives you something tangible. It's sort of like snowballs and it builds on top of one another as well. So now that we've covered all of that, Leon, what is the one tip that you have to leave with the listeners here today? How do we actually go and apply this starting today?
Yeah, man, as usual, I've got one tip, right? And this is quite a big one. I think it's one that I'm super guilty of myself, and it's got to do with comparing yourself to others the whole time. I'm surrounded by a lot of people. I've got quite a few friends, and, you know, some of them very successful, some of them very good looking, lots of them average looking, etc. And I don't know why this happens, and maybe it's just me, but I know that a lot of people are like this, especially in the, let's say, successful area. I do compare myself a lot to my peers and my friends and my colleagues, etc. And I constantly wonder, am I doing enough? Why can't I be better? How did they do? You know, if I listen to what they're talking about, I can see myself doing that. And why are they earning more? Why are there pictures on Facebook? And this is another thing. We spoke about social media. Why do they always look so happy? Why are they always going on boat cruises, you know? And then you realize, and I've realized this for so many of some of these, let's say, acquaintances, that they have another life behind the scenes, and they might not have it that great, you know? They might be suffering spiritually. They might have a very bad health condition that we were never aware of. They might be getting divorced, you know, and one of the friends that's super successful had his job under pressure not too long ago. And, you know, he had a bit of a niche kind of field that he works in. So it's not a case of, but you can just go and earn that same cash somewhere else. He loses that job, he's quite screwed, you know. So we have to stop comparing ourselves, and just self-love is a selfish thing. It's something about you and you're alone. Stop worrying so much about what's going on around you, what other people are doing, and just focus on yourself and be the best you can be with what you have. And that will be my only tip. I think if anything else from this episode, you do that. And I am working on that, and I'm getting way better at it, because I've realized how toxic it can be and how misleading it is most of the times. I think that will be a good tip to kind of give as far as self-love is concerned. Just worry about yourself and how you are doing, and do the best with what you've got.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is so true, Leon. And I think from my point of view, there's really just one tip as well. I think life gets busy and we're all overwhelmed with so many different things demanding our attention, that my only tip would be to start today and to actually start making time for yourself, putting time aside and saying that these are the things that I need to focus on, because I feel that I have been lacking, you know, in the physical department. Physically, I'm not executing kindness. I'm not being kind to myself. Every single night when I get out the shower or I get out the bath, I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, ugh, you know. But just actually set aside some time for yourself, even if it's once a week, just to execute and go through these 4 steps, right? To go through these 4 pillars and say that, you know what, physically, in this week coming up, I will start ironing my shirts again. I bring that up because that's a big thing, right? So, like, especially working from home, I'm going to start ironing my shirts again. I'm going to start polishing my shoes again. I'm going to start looking after myself and doing the best that I can, but starting this week in the physical department. In the mental department, starting this week, starting today or starting tomorrow, I'm going to start by complimenting myself for the things that I actually do get right in life, right? Not for the things that I've messed up, not for the stress
a
that I've
good
put
one.
myself
Yeah.
under, but to look at each and every one of these departments and to actually set some time apart for yourself once a week, once a month, to actually just take stock. Like you said in the beginning, right? Let's take stock. Let's forget about the hustle and bustle. You always do this, Leon. You get away, you take yourself, you remove yourself from your environment. And I feel that that's a very, very important point, is forget about everything else that demands your time. This is about you. This is about you being your own best friend. And this is about you getting acquainted with your own feelings again, with your own mental state and how you look at yourself and fixing that, but knowing that this is an ongoing journey. It's not a once-off thing. It's something that you from time to time will have to do to look after yourself in order for you to be better equipped to look after those
That was
around
brilliant, man. Your tip hit home. That was good. Jeez.
Good. I love it, Leon. It's been such a good episode. And for those of you who have joined us on the public holiday, we have a special prize to give away. No, we don't. But that would be cool. Leon was just looking at me as like, dude, what prize? We're self-funded, man. No, we don't have a prize. But the prize is that you get to start your week on the right foot.
Yeah.
The prize is that you already know that even on a Monday, even on a public holiday, even on an extended weekend, you took some time to look after yourself and you listened to this episode. So I think
love how you turned that around. I got stressed there.
We don't even have t-shirts to give away. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your week. I hope that it's a great one. I hope that it's a successful one. And I hope that this week you can start being more kind to yourself and those around you. With that being said, this is me signing off. Mono.
This was Leon. As usual, I'll catch you guys next week for another exciting episode. Thanks so much. Enjoy the week. Cheers.
What's up, guys and girls? If you've derived some great value from our show thus far, please take a second to rate and review us on the platform that you're tuned in on. This will really help us to grow the show and reach more and more people, to spread the positivity and change more and more lives. So it will literally just take you a second to rate and review us, and who knows, perhaps you could directly be responsible for changing someone's life today. We look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Until then, cheers.